The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that makes you hold your breath without realizing it. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses, her gaze steady and unflinching. The next case had just begun, but something about the young woman walking toward the podium felt different. She moved slowly, almost cautiously, her hands gripping a small folder as if it were the only thing holding her together. Her name appeared on the docket: Emily Harper versus Daniel Grayson. But no one in that room, not even the producers, knew that what was about to unfold wasn't just another small claims dispute. Judge Judy watched her closely. The way Emily's shoulders curved inward, the faint tremor in her voice when she said, "Good afternoon, Your Honor." It wasn't nervousness. Judy had seen nerves before. This was something else, something heavier. Without a word, the judge leaned forward. The room seemed to shrink under her gaze. "Miss Harper," she began, her tone calm but piercing, "before we start, who hurt you?" The words hit the air like a thunderclap. The audience shifted. Even the court reporter's fingers froze above the keyboard. Emily's lips parted in confusion, but her eyes, those told the truth. Pain. Deep, exhausted pain. For a long moment, she said nothing, just stared down at her trembling hands. Her silence said more than any opening statement ever could. Judge Judy didn't rush her. She didn't repeat the question. She simply waited, eyes locked on Emily, reading every flicker of emotion like lines in an open book. You could feel it through the screen. This wasn't about money or property or contracts. Something inside this woman was breaking quietly, and the judge could see it before anyone else did. When Emily finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm fine, Your Honor." But Judy's expression didn't change. She'd been on the bench long enough to know that "I'm fine" is one of the biggest lies people tell, especially when they've been hurt. "Fine," she repeated softly. "No, you're not." A faint murmur swept through the audience. Emily's lawyer looked confused. Even the opposing party, a middle-aged man in a pressed gray suit, tried to smirk as if to brush it off. But the judge's eyes snapped toward him, and the smirk disappeared. Something told her this man wasn't just here for a dispute. Something about the way Emily refused to look at him, the way her shoulders stiffened whenever he moved, it screamed unspoken fear. And Judge Judy noticed every detail. The question lingered in everyone's mind. Who was this man? What did he do to her? And how much pain had Emily been hiding behind that quiet voice? As Judy picked up the case file, she didn't just see a claim for property damage. She saw a story written between the lines, one that had nothing to do with broken walls or unpaid rent. She saw a young woman carrying the weight of something unspeakable. And though the courtroom didn't yet know it, this was the day that pain would finally be seen, because Judge Judy, before Emily ever spoke a word, already knew. Judge Judy flipped through the thin stack of papers before her. She said, "All right, Miss Harper, you're being sued by your former landlord, Mr. Daniel Grayson, for property damage totaling $2,800. He claims you left the apartment uninhabitable. Is that correct?" Emily nodded faintly. "Yes, Your Honor, that's what he says." The words came out steady, but her tone carried no conviction. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't angry. She was tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying too much for too long. Judge Judy's eyes flicked to Daniel Grayson, seated with arms crossed and a faint smirk that didn't belong in a courtroom. He looked like a man used to getting his way. Clean suit, polished watch, the sort of self-assuredness that bordered on arrogance. He didn't look at Emily, but every time she spoke, his jaw tightened. "Mr. Grayson," Judy said, "you'll get your turn. Sit still." Then, turning back to Emily, "What kind of work do you do?" "I'm a nursing assistant, Your Honor. I work at Westbrook Senior Care." Judy's expression softened. "So you help take care of people?" "Yes, ma'am." There was a pause, brief but heavy. "And how long were you living at Mr. Grayson's property?" "About 11 months. "Did you pay your rent on time?" "Yes, ma'am, always. I have the receipts here." She reached into her folder, her fingers shaking as she slid the papers across the bench. Judy took them without breaking eye contact. "You seem nervous." "It's just being here." But the judge wasn't buying it. "Miss Harper, I've been doing this a long time. Court doesn't scare people like you. Something else does." Across the courtroom, Daniel shifted in his chair. His lawyer whispered something, but he waved him off. A flash of irritation crossed his face, gone as quickly as it came. The air was thick with tension. "All right," Judy continued. "You moved out on July 12th. He claims you caused water damage and broke the door. Did that happen?" "There was a leak in the kitchen pipe," Emily said quietly, "but I reported it weeks before I left. He'd never fixed it." "Do you have proof?" "Yes, I emailed him twice, and I sent pictures." "Twice? And no response?" "None." Judy's instincts sharpened. "Why did you move out?" "I found a place closer to work." Judy stared at her. "That's not the truth." Emily froze. "You're hiding something, and I'm going to find out what it is." Daniel tried to interject. "Your Honor." "Quiet," Judy snapped. "You'll speak when I tell you to." The judge turned back to Emily. "You see, I've been around too many people who say everything is fine while they're falling apart. You look like one of them. I don't believe you moved because of traffic." Emily's eyes glistened. "It's nothing, Your Honor. I just wanted to leave." But nothing never meant nothing, not in Judy's courtroom. The audience could sense it. Fear, shame, maybe even guilt. Was this really about property damage, or was Daniel using the law to hide something darker? "Miss Harper," Judy began, "did Mr. Grayson ever come to your apartment uninvited?" Emily's eyes widened. The question came out of nowhere. "Sometimes," she whispered. "Sometimes?" "He said he needed to check the plumbing, or the smoke detector, or the rent notice, but sometimes he just showed up. Without notice." "Yes, Your Honor." "At night?" "Sometimes." Daniel stood. "Your Honor, I was maintaining—" "Sit down," Judy snapped. Emily's breathing quickened. "He'd use his spare key, said it was an emergency." The room froze. "And what did he do?" "He'd ask personal questions about my family, my boyfriend, if I was seeing anyone." "Did he ever threaten you?" "Not directly, but once when I told him to stop, he said, 'You should be careful. Good tenants are easy to replace.'" Judy's jaw tightened. "And that's when you decided to leave?" Emily hesitated. "No, there was one night he said the water heater was leaking. I told him to wait till morning. He came anyway. I locked myself in my room. When I came out, the front door was broken." Gasps filled the room. "He broke it?" "Yes, and now he's suing me for it." Judy slammed her pen down. "Enough." She turned to him. "You think fear is silence. Fear is survival. You used your power to intimidate her." Emily's tears flowed freely now, her body shaking with relief. Judy's tone softened. "You didn't deserve that. You have nothing to be ashamed of." The judge's tone shifted. "Mr. Grayson, stand up." He hesitated. "You broke her door, you violated her safety, and you came into my courtroom expecting to get paid for it. You should be ashamed." Daniel's face turned pale. Judy pointed her pen at him. "You came here for money. What you're leaving with is exposure." She turned back to Emily. "Miss Harper, how long have you been carrying this alone?" "Almost a year," she whispered. Judy nodded. "A year of fear, but you're free now. And I want you to remember something. Fear isn't consent, it's survival." Emily sobbed. Judy's tone softened further. "People like him rely on silence, but the moment you speak, their power vanishes." She snapped her fingers, just like that. When the gavel came down, the sound echoed like thunder. "Case dismissed," she said firmly, "with prejudice." Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. The audience exhaled together. Emily covered her face, overwhelmed by release. Judy looked at her with quiet pride. "You did nothing wrong. Never apologize for surviving." Emily nodded through tears. "Thank you, Your Honor." "No," Judy replied. "Thank yourself. You showed up." The bailiff escorted Daniel out. The room was silent, except for the sound of Emily's quiet sobbing. Judge Judy watched her go, her eyes glinting not with victory, but with empathy. She had done more than settle a case. She had helped heal a wound. The lights dimmed as the narrator's voice rose softly. Sometimes justice isn't about who's right or wrong on paper. It's about being seen. Emily Harper walked in believing she was invisible, but Judge Judy saw what no one else did: the silence, the fear, the pain behind her eyes. Images of Emily leaving the courthouse played slowly. In a world where power hides behind suits and smiles, empathy can be the loudest form of justice. Judge Judy didn't just rule, she listened. "Friends," the voice continued, "how many Emilys walk past us every day? People who smile but carry invisible scars. Maybe they're your neighbors, your coworkers. Maybe they're you. And maybe all it takes to change a life is someone who looks a little closer. Because next week, another case will walk through that same door. The screen shifted to a wide aerial shot of the city. Cars moving, people walking, the rhythm of ordinary life continuing. There are people all around us who carry stories like Emily's. People who stay quiet because they think no one will believe them. People who think their pain isn't enough to matter. But it matters. And when someone like Judge Judy looks them in the eye and says, "I see you," it changes everything. The narrator's voice softened into a heartfelt closing. Friends, if this story moved you, share it. Share it not for the drama, but for the reminder that empathy still exists. Leave your thoughts below. What would you have done if you were in Emily's place? Because sometimes courage isn't loud. It's the quiet act of showing up and speaking when your voice shakes. The camera faded slowly back to the courtroom door, the golden light streaming through the glass as the final words appeared on screen. Next week, another case will walk through this door. Another soul will try to hide their pain, and once again, Judge Judy will see what no one else can. A final pause, just long enough to let the weight of that promise settle in. Then the narrator closed with a whisper that carried both hope and truth. Because justice, real justice, doesn't always come from a verdict. Sometimes it begins with a question, and a judge brave enough to ask it. Fade to black. The black screen lingered for several seconds, as if the story itself needed time to settle. Then, faintly, the sound of a clock ticking began, each beat a reminder of time, of the lives that keep moving beyond the courtroom. The narrator's voice returned, one last time, calm, sincere, and filled with quiet strength. Some stories stay with you, not because they're sensational, but because they reveal something we all forget, that kindness still has power, that one person's courage can remind the rest of us how to stand a little taller, speak a little louder, care a little deeper. The faint sound of papers shuffling could be heard, a courtroom closing for the day, another chapter written in the endless book of human struggle. The voice continued. Emily Harper didn't win a fortune. She didn't walk away with applause. What she gained was peace, the rare kind that comes when truth finally takes its first breath. And Judge Judy, with all her authority and experience, didn't just apply the law. She applied humanity. Soft instrumental music began to rise, delicate piano chords layered with distant strings. The narrator paused, then added, "It's easy to think justice lives only in the system, but sometimes it lives in a look, in the way someone finally sees you when no one else ever did." Footage rolled again briefly. Judy's calm, piercing stare, Emily's trembling smile as she left, and the landlord, head bowed, being led quietly away. The narrator spoke as if reading a letter to every unseen viewer. If you've ever been afraid to tell your story, remember Emily. She didn't plan to be brave. She simply refused to stay silent one more day, and that was enough to turn fear into freedom. The music swelled, carrying the weight of every unsaid word. And to those who watch, remember this: empathy is a kind of justice too. We can't fix every wrong, but we can choose to see, to listen, to believe. The final image appeared, the empty bench, the judge's nameplate catching the last glimmer of light. Because, the narrator whispered once more, next week, another soul will stand here. Another secret will tremble behind shaking hands, and once again, Judge Judy will see what no one else can. A slow fade. Then silence.